I assumed the catastrophe would be another worthless crypto coin crashing in our portfolio. I was wrong. When 47 notifications detonated my phone precisely at noon, I realized Marcus had not just gambled our money, he had tokenized my existence. My sanctuary, my career, and my privacy were now public equity in a delusional startup, sold piece by piece to strangers while I sat in a meeting. My name is Elena, and at 36 years old, I have built a career on the principle that there is no such thing as an accident, only poor planning. As the creative director at Apex Horizon Design, I spend my days imposing structure upon the chaotic whims of billionaires who think good taste can be purchased. I sleep with the same precision I apply to my blueprints, which is why waking up at 6 in the morning to the sight of my husband looming over the bed was a violation of the highest order. Marcus, at 38, still called himself a serial entrepreneur, though a more accurate title would be a serial arsonist of our savings accounts. He stood there in the pre-dawn gray of our bedroom, wearing a t-shirt stained with yesterday's coffee and an expression I had only seen in documentaries about men on death row waiting for the warden. "Give me your phone," he said. His voice was not a demand. It was a plea, brittle and terrified. I sat up, blinking against the gloom. "Marcus, it is 6 o'clock in the morning. What is wrong with you?" He did not answer. He lunged for the nightstand, snatching my iPhone with a desperation that sent a bottle of water tumbling to the carpet. He clutched the device to his chest, his knuckles white. "Please, just listen to me," Marcus stammered, backing away toward the door. "Don't check your email. Don't look at social media. Don't look at anything until noon. Trust me." I stared at him, my mind racing through the Rolodex of marital disasters. "Trust you, Marcus. You look like you just buried a body in the backyard. Is it a woman? Did you get someone pregnant?" "No, God, no. It's nothing like that," he said, his voice cracking. He looked physically ill, sweating despite the morning chill. It is complicated. Just promise me. Noon. Give me until noon to fix it." I studied his face. I had seen Marcus guilty before. He usually looked like a puppy who had chewed a slipper. This was different. This was the face of a man who had accidentally leaned his elbow on the launch button for a nuclear warhead. Marcus. "Give me the phone," I said, extending my hand with the authority I usually reserved for incompetent junior designers. "You will hate me by noon," he whispered. Then he turned and fled. I heard his heavy footsteps pounding down the hallway, followed by the slam of his home office door and the distinct click of the deadbolt. I sat there in the silence, stunned. My first instinct was to kick down his door and demand answers, but the alarm clock buzzed, signaling 6:15. The discipline I had cultivated for 15 years took over. If I stayed and screamed at him, I would be late. If I was late, the morning briefing would slip, and I did not let things slip. He probably maxed out the Amex again. I muttered to the empty room, forcing myself out of bed. Or he bought another garage full of herbal supplements that nobody wants. I went through my morning ritual with mechanical efficiency. Shower, skincare, black coffee, strong enough to strip paint. I dressed in my armor, a charcoal blazer and tailored trousers, and drove my SUV into the gray drizzle of downtown Seattle. I forced myself to listen to a podcast on architectural trends, deliberately drowning out the gnawing sensation in my gut that suggested this was not about a credit card bill. When I walked into the glass-walled offices of Apex Horizon, I was the picture of composure. I led the 9 o'clock briefing with 3 senior partners, tearing apart a flawed proposal for a tech campus with surgical precision. "The flow is wrong," I told them, pointing at the projection. "You are forcing people to walk through the cafeteria to get to the meeting rooms. It smells like grease and poor decision-making. Fix it." They nodded, scribbling furiously. Yet, as the morning wore on, the atmosphere shifted. It was subtle at first, A sudden silence when I walked past the break room. Two junior designers huddled by the printer, glancing at me and then quickly looking down at their shoes when our eyes met. I ignored it. They were likely gossiping about the rumored merger, or perhaps they were just intimidated. I was used to being the subject of whispers. It came with the territory of being a woman who refused to apologize for her standards. At 11:59, I sat alone in my office. The city of Seattle lay spread out beneath my window, oblivious and gray. My phone sat in the center of my mahogany desk, face up, currently in Do Not Disturb mode. Marcus had returned it to the kitchen counter before locking himself away, and I had carried it like a grenade all morning. The digital clock on my laptop flickered. 59 seconds. I stared at the black screen. The knot in my stomach tightened into a cold, hard stone. Whatever Marcus had done, whatever noon meant, the time for ignorance was over. I reached out, my finger hovering over the side button, ready to invite the catastrophe in. It was exactly 12 o'clock when I tapped the screen to turn off the Do Not Disturb mode. I expected a missed call from my mother, or perhaps a reminder about a dentist appointment. Instead, my phone convulsed. It vibrated so violently against the hard mahogany surface of my desk that it sounded like a trapped insect in its death throes. The screen lit up with a blinding cascade of banners, stacking on top of one another faster than my eyes could track. 47 messages arrived in a single breath. They were not from friends. They were not from family. They were a deluge of unknown numbers, frantic email alerts, and banking notifications. My heart hammered against my ribs as I picked up the device, which felt hot to the touch. I opened the first text message from a number with an unfamiliar area code. I am standing at your front door. The smart lock code is not working. Please provide the updated code immediately. I frowned, my confusion thick and heavy. Before I could process it, I read the second one. I am the verified owner of 0.05% of the living room, and I have the right to access the property. Open the gate. Why is the pool not heated yet? A third message demanded. The Sanctuary DAO white paper clearly stated that amenities would be ready upon launch. We were told we could move in today. I felt the blood drain from my face. Sanctuary DAO? What on earth was a Sanctuary DAO? My fingers trembled as I switched to my email app. My inbox was flooded with automated receipts. Welcome to the community. Transaction confirmed. New governance proposal. Then came the notification from our bank. The text was stark and terrifyingly official. Your joint checking account has been frozen due to suspicious activity regarding large-scale digital asset transactions. Please contact the fraud department immediately. I gripped the edge of my desk, the room spinning slightly. Marcus. This had to be Marcus. But what had he done? Gambling debts did not bring strangers to your doorstep demanding pool access. The final blow came from the one person I feared most professionally. A message popped up from Arthur, the CEO of Apex Horizon Design. It contained no greeting, just a link and a single line of text that made my stomach drop. Elena, explain this right now. Why are the exclusive blueprints for the VIP client, the ones under strict non-disclosure agreements, displayed on this pyramid scheme website? I tapped the link. My browser opened to a sleek, high-tech landing page titled Sanctuary DAO: The Future of Decentralized Living. And there it was, my house. A professional drone shot of our home, the one I had spent 5 years renovating, was the banner image, but it was not just the house. As I scrolled down, horror clawed at my throat. There was my face, copied from my LinkedIn profile, listed as the asset manager and lead curator. Beside it was a gallery of my architectural drawings' proprietary work that belonged to my firm marketed as Future Expansion Plans. The text below the images was a word salad of tech buzzwords. Own a fraction of the dream. The world's first tokenized community living space. Buy governance tokens to vote on dinner menus and interior decor. I dropped the phone, It clattered onto the desk, landing face up, still displaying the price of a kitchen access token. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. Marcus had not cheated on me with another woman. That would have been manageable. That would have been human. This was something else entirely. He had taken our home, my sanctuary, and my entire professional reputation, and he had chopped them up into thousands of digital coins. He sold us, I whispered to the empty office, my voice shaking. He put our life on the blockchain. I forced my breathing to slow down, treating the panic rising in my throat like a structural flaw in a building that needed shoring up. I clicked on the tab labeled White Paper on the Sanctuary DAO website. We have received a disturbingly high volume of inquiries regarding a crypto project featuring our proprietary data. I can explain, I said, gripping the steering wheel. I am a victim of identity theft. My husband. We have to protect the firm. He cut me off. Until we can verify that you did not authorize the release of the Skyline blueprints to solicit funds. We are placing you on immediate unpaid suspension. Your company email has been deactivated. The line went dead. I merged onto the highway, the wipers slashing rhythmically against the glass. The anger that had been simmering in my gut cooled into something solid and sharp, like tempered steel. Marcus had not just made a bad investment. He had taken the reputation I had built brick by brick for 15 years every late night, every perfect detail, every sacrifice, and he had traded it for a moment of validation from strangers on the internet. I adjusted my blazer, straightened my spine, and walked toward the mob with the same icy determination I used when firing an incompetent contractor. The crowd turned to look at me. A murmur rippled through them. "Hey, that is her! That is the asset manager," someone shouted. A young man in a faded cryptocurrency t-shirt broke from the pack and rushed toward me. He shoved a phone in my face, the screen displaying a complex digital wallet interface. "I have been waiting here for 2 hours," he yelled, his voice cracking with entitlement. "I paid $5,000 for the kitchen governance token. The smart contract says I have immediate visitation rights. You have no right to keep me out." I stopped and looked at him. I did not blink. I did not step back. I stared at him until he faltered, lowering his phone slightly. "Listen to me very carefully," I said, my voice projecting clearly over the murmuring crowd. "You did not buy my kitchen. You bought a digital lie." I did not throw things. I looked at the way one looks at a cockroach scurrying across a pristine countertop, something repulsive that needed to be removed for sanitation purposes. "Marcus, sit down," I said. "Elena, please." "You have to see the vision," he pleaded, backing away until his legs hit the sofa. "The valuation is already at $2 million. If we just let them use the pool, or maybe just the guest bathroom." I walked until I was standing directly over him. "You have exactly 5 minutes, I said, my voice quiet and dangerous. "You have 5 minutes to explain to me how you are going to fix this before I call the police to remove that mob from my lawn, and then ask them to take you with them." Marcus sat on the edge of the beige sofa, wiping his sweaty palms on the knees of his jeans. He took a deep, shaky breath and launched into a speech that sounded like it had been lifted directly from a bad TED Talk. "Elena, you have to look at the macro perspective," Marcus said, his voice trembling slightly but gaining speed as he hit the buzzwords he had memorized. "This is about disrupting the paradigm of traditional homeownership. It is the sharing economy 2.0. We are not just selling a house. We are selling financial sovereignty. We are democratizing the concept of shelter." I stood over him, my arms crossed, feeling a vein throb in my temple. Cut the crap. "Marcus, tell me exactly what you did to the deed. The house is in my name. I bought it 3 years before I met you." Marcus flinched. He looked down at the expensive rug, unable to meet my eyes. I had some setbacks," he mumbled. "The crypto market crashed last month. I was leveraged, heavily. I lost everything in the futures market. I needed liquidity to cover the margin calls, and I needed collateral to launch Sanctuary DAO. He paused, swallowing hard. I used your digital signature, he whispered. I accessed your secure drive while you were asleep. I authorized the transfer of the deed into the DO's smart contract as the founding asset. Technically, the blockchain owns the house now. My knees almost buckled. He had not just gambled, he had committed a felony. He had stolen my identity to pawn my life. Why, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Marcus looked up, his eyes wet with tears. He reached out as if to touch my hand, but I recoiled. I did it for us, he cried out, his voice cracking. I thought, if this project took off, we would have millions. You are always so stressed, Elena. You work 16 hours a day for clients who do not appreciate you. I wanted to retire you. I wanted to give you the freedom you deserve. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound that felt like sandpaper in my throat. Do not dare lie to me right now, I said, my tone lethal. You did not do this for me. You did it because you cannot stand that I am the one who pays the mortgage. You did it because every time we go to a dinner party, people ask me about my designs and ask you if you are still looking for opportunities. You are jealous, Marcus. You wanted to turn me into a product that you could manage so you could finally feel like the big man in charge. Marcus turned red. He opened his mouth to argue, but the truth hung heavy in the room between us. Give me the admin key, I demanded, extending my hand. Give me the master password to the Sanctuary DAO system. I am shutting this down. Now! Marcus froze. A look of genuine terror crossed his face. Far worse than when I had threatened to call the police. I can't, he stammered. What do you mean you can't? I snapped. You built it. Give me the access. That is the whole point of a decentralized autonomous organization. Elena Marcus shouted, his voice rising in panic. It is decentralized. I renounced the contract ownership this morning to prove to the investors that it was not a rug pull. The smart contract is locked. It is immutable code now. I stared at him, trying to comprehend the sheer magnitude of his stupidity. Are you telling me, I said slowly, enunciating every word, that you cannot stop this, that we cannot kick these people out, not without a governance vote? Marcus whimpered. We need a consensus of 51% of the token holders to change the access protocols. And right now, the tokens are distributed among 4,000 different wallets. I looked at him. I had thought he was a malicious con artist. I realized now he was something far more dangerous, an arrogant fool who had built a machine he did not understand and fed us both into the gears. A loud crash shattered the tense silence. I spun around. A jagged spiderweb of cracks had appeared on the large bay window facing the street. A rock had bounced off the reinforced glass and lay on the porch. Through the gap in the curtains, I saw the mob outside pushing against the gate. They had seen Marcus moving inside. He is in there, someone screamed from the lawn. That is the developer. We want our dividends. Another rock hit the siding of the house with a dull thud. The chanting grew louder, a mix of demands for money and access to the clubhouse. I looked at the cracking window, then back at the man huddled on the sofa. I was trapped in my own home, besieged by a digital lynch mob, with the very person who had sold the tickets to my execution. I pulled my phone from my pocket and dialed Sarah. Then I added David to the call. David was an old friend from college who had spent the last decade working in cybersecurity, mostly cleaning up messes for banks that did not want to admit they had been hacked. I put the phone on the coffee table, activating the speakerphone so the voices filled the room. I am here, David said, his voice crisp and metallic. I am already running a packet sniffer on the Sanctuary DAO host server. Elena, Sarah's voice cut in, sharp as a razor. I need you to listen to me. You are currently an accessory to a massive securities fraud. If you do not separate yourself from Marcus right now, you are going to prison. Do not protect him. Do not cover for him. You need to become the whistleblower, or you will be the co-defendant. Marcus whimpered from the corner of the sofa. He looked small, huddled in his expensive hoodie. David, what are you seeing? I asked, ignoring my husband. It is a mess, David replied. But Marcus is lying to you. Marcus's head snapped up. I am not. The code is law. Shut up. Marcus, David said calmly through the speaker. Elena, the contract is not fully immutable. There is a hard-coded backdoor in the admin protocol. It is a withdrawal function disguised as a maintenance fee loop. Whoever holds the original deployer key can drain the liquidity pool whenever they want. I turned to Marcus. The look on his face shifted from fear to guilt in a split second. Open your laptop. I ordered. Elena? Wait. Marcus stammered. I walked over, grabbed his MacBook from the side table, and slammed it down in front of him. Open it. Now. He typed in his password with trembling fingers. I spun the laptop around to face me. David guided me through the file directory until I found a hidden crypto wallet interface. I stared at the number on the screen. $198,000. You have nearly $200,000 in here, I said, my voice dangerously low. You told me we were broke. You told me the investors owned everything. But you have been siphoning their money into a private account? Marcus slid off the sofa and fell to his knees. He grabbed the hem of my trousers, his face wet with tears and snot. It is not for me, I swear, Marcus cried, his voice hitching. I borrowed money, cash, from bad people. Elena, to pay for the marketing bots, to pay for the influencers, I owe them $50,000 by Friday. If I don't pay. They said they would come here. They said they would hurt you. The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I looked at the man I had married. He was not just a thief. He was a liability who had invited not only a mob of angry nerds, but also violent loan sharks to my doorstep. So that is the plan, I asked. Looking down at him, you steal from the internet to pay the mafia, and when the scheme collapses, you leave me to deal with the police. I was going to fix it. Marcus sobbed. I just needed more time. I pulled my leg away from his grasp. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It was the death of my marriage. It was not loud or dramatic. It was just a quiet, heavy click, like a door locking shut. David, I said clearly. Can you seize control of that wallet if you plug the laptop into the router via Ethernet? I can tunnel in and transfer the assets to a secure escrow bucket, David said. I can also lock Marcus out of the system entirely. Do it, I said. Sarah, start drafting the affidavit. I am going to report a financial crime involving unauthorized use of my identity and corporate theft. I am naming Marcus as the sole perpetrator. Elena. Please, Marcus wailed. You can't do this. I am your husband. You ceased to be my husband the moment you sold my bedroom to a stranger. I replied. I leaned down until my face was inches from his. He smelled of fear and stale sweat. Here is the reality. Marcus, I whispered. Outside, there are 20 people who want to tear you apart. Somewhere in the city, there are loan sharks who want to break your legs. And right here, there is me. And I am the only one who can keep you out of a body bag today. I stood up and pointed to the laptop. Connect the computer to the internet cable. I commanded. You are going to help us dismantle your little empire. And if you hesitate, even for a second, I will open the front door and let the shareholders in to have a meeting with their CEO. Stand against the white wall, I commanded, pointing to the only spot in the living room that did not look like a bunker under siege. Put on your blazer. You need to look like a humbled CEO, not a fugitive. Marcus fumbled with the buttons of his jacket, his hands shaking so badly he missed the loop twice. I set up his phone on a tripod, framing him tightly so the background was obscured. Read the teleprompter app exactly as I wrote it, I said, my voice devoid of warmth. If you improvise, if you try to spin this into a pivot or a new opportunity, I will unplug the router and let David lock the wallet forever. I understand. Marcus stammered, wiping sweat from his upper lip. Am I live? 3, 2, 1. Go. Marcus looked into the camera lens, his eyes wide and terrified. Hello. Sanctuary community, Marcus began, his voice cracking before he cleared his throat. This is Marcus, the founder. I am writing to you. I mean, speaking to you, with a heavy heart. The project has encountered a critical liquidity failure. It was a failed experiment. To protect the community, I am initiating a full refund protocol immediately. As he rambled on about unexpected market volatility, I turned to the laptop. David was already in the system. I see the traffic spike. David's voice came through the speakerphone, calm and rhythmic. He is live. Now is the time. Elena. I executed the command. $198,000 vanished from Marcus's hidden wallet. It did not go to him, and it did not go to the loan sharks. It flew through the digital ether directly into an escrow account controlled by Sarah's law firm. Funds secured, Sarah confirmed. I am triggering the automated refund script to the wallet addresses on the purchase log. David, the blueprints, I said, watching the live stream where Marcus was now crying real tears, begging for forgiveness. Already gone, David replied. I injected a takedown script into the site's backend. The images of your designs are replaced with 404 error codes. I am scrubbing the cache now. As far as the internet is concerned, Apex Horizon never had anything to do with this dumpster fire. Outside, the noise began to shift. The angry chanting faltered. I walked to the window and peeked through the curtain. The mob was looking at their phones. I saw shoulders drop. I saw confusion replace aggression. A few people turned around and started walking back to their cars. It is working, I whispered. However, not everyone was satisfied. 3 men near the gate, the ones who looked less like tech investors and more like trouble, did not check their phones. They started kicking the wooden slats of my fence. We know you have more in there. One of them screamed, Open up. A slat of the fence splintered with a loud crack. I did not hesitate. I dialed 911, emergency services. The dispatcher answered. My name is Elena. I am at 42 Highland Avenue. I said, my voice steady and clear. I have a group of individuals attempting to break down my security fence. They are trespassing and behaving violently. I have video evidence of them damaging private property. I am afraid for my safety. Officers are already en route. Ma'am, the dispatcher replied. We received multiple noise complaints from your neighbors 10 minutes ago. I hung up. The fence cracked again. But then the distinct wail of sirens cut through the air. The 3 men froze, looked at each other, and scattered into the bushes. Inside, Marcus ended the live stream. He slumped against the wall, sliding down until he hit the floor. He looked up at me with a pathetic, hopeful smile. We did it. Elena, he breathed out, loosening his tie. The comments, they are saying they respect the honesty. They are getting their money back. It is over. He stood up, brushing dust off his trousers. The color was returning to his cheeks. The delusion was already creeping back in. We can't stay here, obviously, Marcus said, pacing the room with renewed energy. But this is a chance for a fresh start. I was thinking, maybe Portland or Austin. I can get a job in sales until I figure out the next venture. We can sell the house once the market cools down. I watched him. It was fascinating, in a morbid way, to see how quickly he rewrote reality to suit his comfort. Marcus, I said. He stopped and looked at me. Yeah, babe. You are going, I said, a small, cold smile touching my lips. But you are not going with me. What? What do you mean? He asked, his smile faltering. We are a team. You just saved my life. I saved my house. I corrected him. And I saved my career. Blue and red lights flashed against the living room curtains, bathing us in a strobe of police authority. Heavy footsteps pounded up the driveway. "Elena." "The police are here," Marcus whispered, panic returning to his eyes. "It is okay. I will tell them it was a misunderstanding. We refunded the money. It is a civil matter." "Right. Sarah said it is a civil matter if we pay them back." I walked past him to the front door. I unlocked the deadbolt and turned the handle. "Elena," Marcus called out, his voice trembling. "What are you doing?" I opened the door wide. The cool, damp air of Seattle rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and impending justice. 2 uniformed officers stood on the porch, hands resting near their belts. "Mrs. Elena," one of them asked. "Yes," I said, stepping aside to reveal Marcus standing in the center of the living room. "Thank you for coming so quickly." "The man you are looking for is right there. And I have a statement I would like to make regarding identity theft and fraud." The sergeant, a man named Miller with tired eyes and a skepticism born of handling too many domestic disputes, looked from me to Marcus and back again. He held his notepad ready but had not written anything down yet. "Ma'am, usually in cases of marital property disputes, we advise couples to separate for the night and handle it in civil court," Miller said, his tone weary. "Unless there is physical violence, we cannot simply remove a resident spouse." I did not argue. I simply reached into the leather portfolio I had prepared while Marcus was busy live-streaming his fake apology. I pulled out a thick stack of documents, tabbed and highlighted. "This is not a marital dispute." "Sergeant," I said, my voice as crisp as the paper I handed him, "this is a case of trespassing and fraud. I purchased this property in 2009, 3 years prior to my marriage. The deed is in my name, solely. And here," I flipped to the next page, pointing to a highlighted digital log, "is the forensic proof that Marcus forged my digital signature to leverage this property without my consent." Marcus stepped forward, his face pale. "Elena, what are you doing? We are married. You can't just—" He was cut off by the screech of tires in the driveway. Sarah's car had pulled up onto the grass, right next to the patrol cruiser. She sprinted up the steps, bypassing the police with the confidence of a woman who spent her life in courthouses. "Officer," Sarah said, breathless but authoritative. She thrust a court document into Miller's hand. "I am the homeowner's legal counsel. That is an emergency protective order, approved by Judge Reynolds electronically 10 minutes ago. It bars Mr. Marcus Thorne from coming within 500 feet of this property or my client. Effective immediately." Marcus looked at the paper, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on a dock. "A restraining order," Marcus whispered, his voice trembling. "Elena, baby, tell them this is a mistake." I fixed the money. I sent it back. I turned to Sergeant Miller. "I would also like to play a recording for you. It was taken in this room less than an hour ago." I tapped the screen of my phone. Marcus's voice, clear and undeniable, filled the entryway. "I used your digital signature. I authorized the transfer of the deed. I have nearly $200,000 in here to pay for the marketing bots." The atmosphere on the porch shifted instantly. Sergeant Miller's posture straightened. The second officer moved his hand from his belt to his handcuffs. This was no longer a husband and wife arguing over a bad investment. This was a confession to grand larceny and identity theft. "Mr. Thorne," Miller said, his voice dropping an octave into professional command. "I need you to turn around and place your hands behind your back. No, wait." Marcus backed away, knocking into a side table. It was a business pivot. It was a liquidity issue. "Elena, stop them." "I am afraid I cannot do that," I said, watching him with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing a specimen. "You have the right to remain silent. Marcus, I suggest you use it." The click of the handcuffs was loud in the sudden silence of the house. As the officers marched him out the front door, the small group of lingering investors on the sidewalk, the ones who had refused to leave, raised their phones. Marcus was led down the driveway, his head bowed, illuminated by the flashing red and blue lights. The live streamers captured every second of his humiliation. The man who had wanted to be a viral sensation was finally getting his wish, just not the way he had intended. I stood on the threshold, wrapping my arms around myself against the chill. I waited for the tears to come. I waited for the heartbreak or the grief of a 5-year marriage ending in handcuffs. But nothing came. Instead, I felt a profound, airy lightness. It was the sensation of a surgeon who had successfully excised a malignant tumor that had been slowly poisoning the body. The police cruiser pulled away. The crowd dispersed, chasing the drama down the street. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, placing a hand on my shoulder. "I am fine," I said, and I meant it. Actually, I am better than fine. I have work to do. I turned back into the empty house. I walked straight to my home office and sat down at my desk. I opened a new email draft addressed to the board of directors at Apex Horizon. Subject report on internal security breach and successful mitigation. I attached the police report number, the copy of the restraining order, and the transaction logs showing the full refund to the victims. I began to type. I did not frame myself as a victim. I framed myself as a proactive whistleblower who had detected a high-level external threat, my husband, and neutralized it to protect the firm's integrity. I was not the woman whose husband had sold her life. I was the executive who had crushed a digital fraud ring before breakfast. By tomorrow morning, the headlines would not be about my humiliation. They would be about my competence. The following 72 hours were not spent weeping into a pillow. They were spent in a conference room with a crisis management team I had hired at $400 an hour. I treated the destruction of my marriage exactly like a failing construction project. I assessed the damage, shored up the foundation, and ruthlessly cut loose the dead weight. I controlled the narrative with the precision of a surgeon. My team released a press statement framing me as the unwitting whistleblower, the diligent wife who had discovered a security breach and acted instantly to protect the public. We used the money secured in Sarah's escrow account to issue full refunds to every single wallet address that had purchased a token. The reaction was immediate. The same internet mob that had wanted to burn my house down 3 days ago was now hailing me as a guardian of integrity in the wild west of cryptocurrency. My phone rang on Thursday morning. It was Arthur, the CEO of Apex Horizon. "Elena," Arthur said, his voice lacking its usual abrasive edge. "The board has reviewed the police report and your internal audit. Your suspension is lifted, effective immediately. I expect a formal apology." "Arthur," I said, typing an email to my insurance agent as we spoke. "And I expect the firm to cover my legal fees." There was a pause. "Done. Just come back. The junior team is useless without you." But before I could return to my glass office, I had one final site visit to make. I sat in the visitation booth of the county detention center. The air smelled of industrial cleaner and despair. On the other side of the thick plexiglass, Marcus looked like a man who had aged 10 years in 3 days. His orange jumpsuit was too big, and his eyes were red and swollen. He picked up the receiver, his hand trembling. "Elena!" He choked out, tears instantly spilling onto his cheeks. "Thank God you came. You have to get me out," the lawyer says. He says I am looking at 5 to 10 years for wire fraud. You have to tell them I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I picked up my own receiver, but I did not smile. I did not offer comfort. I placed a thick manila envelope against the glass. "These are the divorce papers, Marcus," I said calmly, "and this is a property settlement agreement." "You are signing over all claims to the house, the car, and any shared assets in exchange for me not adding a civil suit to your criminal charges." "Divorce," Marcus gasped, looking as if I had physically struck him. "Baby, no. Please, I made a mistake. I was doing it for us. I was going to surprise you with the money." I leaned forward. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment to sever the last thread. "I know you are lying, Marcus," I said softly. Because the police gave me back your iPad. Marcus froze. The color drained from his face entirely. I looked at your search history from the night before the launch. I continued, my voice steady and cold. You were not looking for vacation spots for us. You were searching for countries with no extradition treaty with the United States. And you had a tab open for a one-way ticket to Belize, departing this coming Saturday. 1 ticket. Marcus, not 2. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked like a fish gasping for air on a dry dock. It was just a fantasy, he whispered finally, his voice barely audible. I was scared. I wasn't really going to leave you. You were going to leave me with the debt, the angry mob, and a foreclosure notice, I said. You were going to run away and let me take the fall for your crime. I stood up. The last shred of pity I had felt for him evaporated, leaving only a clean, hollow space where my love used to be. Sign the papers. Marcus, or I hand that search history over to the district attorney, and they will argue that you are a flight risk who deserves the maximum sentence. I turned and walked away. I did not look back when he started screaming my name and banging his fist against the glass. By Saturday, the house was different. I had hired a crew to rip out the carpets Marcus had walked on. I changed the locks, installed a biometric security system, and had the entire interior repainted a crisp, cool white. I scrubbed his existence from the architecture of my life until not a single fingerprint remained. I was standing in my newly reclaimed living room, drinking a glass of wine, when my phone buzzed. I felt a phantom spike of adrenaline, a remnant of the trauma from a few days ago. It was the 48th message, but this one was not from a creditor, a lawyer, or a scammer. It was from the editor-in-chief of Modern Living, the most prestigious architectural magazine in the country. Dear Elena, the preview read, "We have been following your story with great interest. We would like to feature you in our upcoming issue to discuss digital sovereignty and the protection of design in the modern era. We believe your voice is exactly what the industry needs right now." I lowered the phone and looked out at the city lights of Seattle. I took a sip of wine. The nightmare was over. The renovation was complete, and for the first time in a long time, the foundation felt solid. It has been exactly 3 months since the day I nicknamed Black Tuesday. I sat in my office at Apex Horizon, swiveled my chair around, and looked out at the city of Seattle. The gray drizzle that had defined that horrible morning was gone, replaced by a rare, blinding afternoon sun that made the glass skyscrapers glitter like diamonds. My life had undergone a similarly drastic renovation. Marcus was no longer sleeping in our bed or plotting his next get-rich-quick scheme in my guest room. He was currently residing in a federal facility, wearing a jumpsuit that matched the color of a traffic cone. He had accepted a plea deal to avoid a public trial that would have exposed every humiliating detail of his incompetence. He was serving a 4-year sentence for wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. Ironically, the destruction he tried to bring down upon me had become the foundation of my greatest professional success. The story of how I dismantled a fraudulent, decentralized autonomous organization in real time had gone viral. It was now taught as a case study in business ethics courses and cybersecurity seminars across the country. I was no longer just a creative director. I was a brand. I was the Iron Architect, a woman who could design a skyscraper and defend it from digital pirates before lunch. That evening, I hosted a party. I called it my re-housewarming. There were no crowds of strangers on my lawn. There were no drones buzzing overhead. I had invited only the people who had stood by me when the ground was crumbling. Sarah, David, and a handful of loyal colleagues. We drank expensive wine and laughed about the absurdity of it all. "You know," David said, gesturing with a cheese cracker. "I still have the logs of Marcus's face when the money vanished. I should turn it into an NFT. We could make a fortune." "David, do not even joke about that," Sarah warned, though she was smiling. The mood was light until the doorbell rang. It was a courier delivery. He handed me a small, brown package with a return address from the State Department of Corrections. The room went quiet. I felt the weight of the package in my palm. I knew exactly what it was. I walked to the kitchen island and sliced the tape open. Inside lay a thick stack of handwritten pages, a letter, likely filled with more justifications, more pleas, and more of Marcus's rewriting of history. Resting on top of the paper was a gold wedding band. "He wants you to read it," Sarah said softly, stepping up beside me. I looked at the letter. I could see phrases like "never meant to hurt you" and "soulmate" scrawled in his chaotic handwriting. "I know what it says," I replied. "It says he is sorry he got caught." I did not read it. I did not even break the seal on the letter. I picked up the ring, feeling the cold metal against my skin, and walked out onto the balcony. The cool night air hit my face. Below me, the city lights stretched out like a galaxy. In a movie, the protagonist would throw the ring into the darkness, a dramatic gesture of letting go. But I was Elena. I was a practical woman who understood the value of assets. I turned back to my assistant, who was standing by the sliding glass door. "Take this," I said, dropping the heavy gold band into her palm. "What do you want me to do with it?" Elena, she asked. "Sell it," I said, my voice steady and final. "Liquidate it immediately, and take 100% of the proceeds and donate them to the National Fund for Victims of Online Fraud. Make sure the receipt is sent to the prison." I turned back to the view. I pulled my phone from my pocket. There were no demands for tokens. There were no threats from loan sharks. There were only messages of support, business offers, and photos from my friends enjoying the party inside. I smiled. For years, I had thought marriage was the ultimate security. I was wrong. True security was knowing that no matter what storm hit, I had the strength to weather it alone. I held my finger over the power button. "Goodbye, Marcus," I whispered to the wind. I pressed the button. The screen went black. I stood there in the absolute silence, savoring the most expensive luxury I had ever fought for peace. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope you enjoyed this journey of betrayal and revenge. Please comment below and let me know where you are tuning in from. I would love to hear your thoughts on Elena's decision. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to the Lily Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and hit that notification bell so more people can hear this story. See you in the next drama.